going. Last week,
Sir, mic.
our beloved Prime Minister spoke about solar power in his address on Man Ki Baat. So I want to begin by thanking our Prime Minister for bringing up this importance of solar power and renewable energy in his speech. It is important subject today for India as well as for the world. We have been burning so much fossil fuels, that is coal, petrol, gas, for the last 150 years. I'm not talking about India, I'm talking about the whole world. That the earth is warming, and this global warming is slowly making the earth die. In fact, when one looks at it, it appears that if we don't do anything, we are in for the pralay. I will begin by first asking a simple question. Who is contributing most to the global warming? And then also ask, who is suffering most? In terms of who is contributing most to the global warming, if you look at the data, we find that the richest 1% of people contribute to almost 50% of total greenhouse gas emission. Whereas bottom 50% in the world contribute to less than 1%. And this is not for any particular country. It is for country after country. Even in India, it is a top 1% which is contributing to the 50% of emissions. Whereas bottom 50% is hardly contributing to anything. And who suffers more when a climate change event occurs, like floods, drought, and other events? And it is going to only increase year after year from now on. It is invariably the poorest, the bottom 50%. If you remember, in December 2021, just about a year and a half back, there was a little bit of extra rain in Chennai, and the Chennai was flooded to some extent. And there were areas, localities, even where people living in the high-rise building had to use boats and tractors to get out of the home for 1 week. Not for a short period of time. It's a sign, early signs of global warming. It's a very early sign. What you are going to see is much worse going forward. Now, if you look at country-wise, in terms of per capita contribution to this global warming, India is ranked only 103rd in the world. So, in one sense, we are not contributing much. We are 103rd in terms of per person contribution to the global warming. But in terms of total contribution to the greenhouse gas emissions, India is already 3rd in the world. Because we have a large population, we multiply that, we are already 3rd in the world. And as our GDP increases, which Prime Minister is pushing, we will become the 2nd highest contributor in the world behind China. So, whether we like it or not, we are the major contributors and we are the worst sufferer. And we will be all in trouble. The whole world will be in trouble if we do not reverse it. Therefore, we have no option but to give up the use of fossil fuel completely. We need alternative energy. Fortunately, God has given us sun and the wind. And remember, for ages, we pray to sun. That's the first thing that we do in the morning. For us, for much part of the world, at least the eastern part of the world, We have always looked at, starting from Japan, China, every one of us have looked at sun as the god. The sun has infinite energy. It shines all over the world. And wind also gives us enough energy. 30 years back, we learned how to convert this solar energy using photovoltaics into electricity. And we also 30 years back learned how to use windmills to generate electricity. The problem was 30 years back, it was almost 20 times higher cost than producing electricity through coal, which is of course polluting. So only very little beginning was done, but research and development had started. But things started changing around 2012, 13, and from there onwards, the cost of producing solar and wind-based electricity is lower than that of the coal. Today, per unit of electricity, we pay for unit of electricity, per unit of electricity, the cost for solar and wind is only 2 rupee 50 paise. For the new coal plant, if you also do a little bit of pollution control, it is 3 rupee 50 paise to 4 rupees. From gas, if you use gas to generate electricity, it is about 15 rupees per unit. And from petrol and diesel, it would cost 30 rupees per unit of electricity. And we all use diesel generator. If power goes off in this room, we will have a diesel generator turning on. Why are we then continue to use coal, wind, diesel, petrol, gas? Why not completely switch to solar and wind? We actually have plenty of land in the country to generate solar and wind that we need today and even tomorrow. Even next 25, 30 years, we have enough to generate solar and wind. The problem is that sun is not there 24/7. Wind is not there 24/7. Sun is there in the daytime, and in a cloudy season it is less there. So, I strongly say, sun shines and wind blows when God wishes. And not necessarily when we need. In contrast, electricity demand is when we need it. The electricity from coal, gas and diesel can be turned on, turned off. If mains power goes off, diesel generator can be turned off. We cannot do that directly with solar and wind. So, if you want to use renewable energy, what do we have to do? We have to use batteries. The same kind of batteries that we use in our cell phone and laptops. We have to use, of course, bigger batteries. We have to use batteries. Of course, we can use hydraulic. If you have a hydraulic store, we can pump up the water if we have excess energy, and whenever we need it, we can let the water fall and generate the electricity. But the amount of hydraulic that we have is limited, and it's actually slightly expensive and very lossy. The amount that we put in and amount we get out is much less. So therefore, the real option is only battery. The cost of battery is high. And when used, suppose we take all the solar and wind energy and we store in the battery and then take it out. What is the cost of 1 unit of electricity being stored and taken out? Remember, the cost of generating 1 unit is only 2 rupee 50 paise, but putting it in a battery and taking it out will be about 7 to 8 rupees if we design the battery well. Battery has a limited life, so we have to take its interest and depreciation. It will be about 7 rupees. But I think we don't need to put all the energy generated by solar and wind into battery. We can use it, and a limited extent can go into a battery, so that when solar and wind is not available, we can do that. If we do that, and if we do it well, we at our IIT Madras Research Park are trying to do that, we will be able to bring down the effective cost of solar and wind generation plus the battery to 5 rupees per unit. Now 5 rupees per unit is not very high. So all it requires is a proper design, and we are already doing it at IIT Madras Research Park. So are there any bottlenecks for us to use solar and wind and leave out fossil fuel? Can we use solar and wind and storage and just get rid of fossil fuels? Unfortunately, there are a few bottlenecks. Prime Minister didn't talk too much about it because he was talking a certain kind, but let me elaborate that. The first thing is the silicon-based solar cells which is used today to generate electricity. The full technology, the cost-effective technology is only in China. I went, met them, pleaded with them. They said no, not in India. Their decision. They actually were setting up a plant in Malaysia. So they had a plant in, of course, US, some plant in Europe, and then Malaysia. I came back, but I knew the risk that we are. That time I remember talking all this to Piyush Goyal ji and even to the Prime Minister. There was concern. So I kept on following it. That this cell is a cadmium telluride, it's a different technology. I came back to Chennai. I was only there for a year and a half to Delhi. Delhi is not some place where I can stay. I don't know how others do. It's a very difficult place. This is where I have been there for 42 years. This is where I can stay. So I came back. I kept on pursuing them, however, telling them that India is a large country with large demand. If you put it, our cost is also low. We'll be able to produce it for the world. There is no other way we'll be able to compete with China. I even contacted some of my friends who had little bit support in the US government. And I said, this is important not just for India, but for the whole world and for US also. Fortunately, about 3 years back, the US government said that if First Solar wants to put the plant, we will invest. And then it was a matter of, I just started meeting the secretaries here, and we have set up a cadmium telluride plant in Chennai. The plant will be operational maybe May or June. It's all set up. I don't want to put out negative thing, but I want to still, with your permission, say this, that everything was ready. I remember in November I had gone, the place was ready, machines were coming in, and we were setting it up. And suddenly a new order came from Government of India, which says cadmium telluride you cannot use. Somebody had, I immediately rushed, I went to Piyush Goyal, I went to every minister, wrote to everyone, and sort of said, what are we doing? We are playing into Chinese hand. So somebody says cadmium is not safe. I said, cadmium may not be safe. We are not using cadmium, we are using cadmium telluride. That's very safe. There is nothing wrong. I took some other experts. This is being used. There is nothing wrong. We are using cadmium even in lights. It is not something that is totally, but we don't use it as a cadmium. So later on, of course, it was found out some mischief, some industrialists had got something done to prevent this company for setting up. And fortunately, with God's grace, we were able to reverse the decision. Now the plant is ready. So this is as far as solar power, but this is only a beginning. We are setting up a 3 gigawatt plant. We actually need 50 or 100 gigawatt. So I am trying to persuade them, increase it to 10, increase it to 20. In the meantime, we'll develop more technology and try to set up solar panels, plants in India with our own technology and not depend on Chinese technology. This is something that we are trying to do. Situation is as bad for lithium cells. Battery cells, the one that we use in our cell phone, laptop, and for storage. The most cost-effective cells again come from China.
Of course, there is some technology in Korea and Japan. And now that Japanese technology has been taken to US by Tesla also. But the most cost-effective cells are Chinese. Even here, we need to do something. We don't have in India the technology. Whether we like it or not, we need research and development in India in both these areas. This is a follow-up of what Prime Minister has said, Man Ki Baat. I'm not just repeating. There's no point in repeating what he said. These are what is needed, so that we can take technology leadership in these areas in coming years. As I told you, almost 30% of the people in the world working in these areas are R&D. They are Indians. We have a very strong scientist in India also. Industry and scientists need to work together to innovate, to take leadership in designing, developing and manufacturing both the solar panels as well as the battery technology, and make it the most cost effective, which can be used by India. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have a great track record of R&D, which is resulting to products. We mostly import technology. Scientists often are busy producing papers and occasionally some patents. They don't produce technology which manufactures things. Industry is risk averse. They will rather take technology from outside rather than by large industry in particular. Large industry are very risk averse. We do not encourage mid-sized industries. That's the unfortunate part. Sorry to say this, but the government bureaucracy is more interested in controlling the R&D, which they know nothing about. And that never works. They often want instant results. They'll first not look at it, then to say, oh, do it in 3 months. But R&D doesn't get done in 3 months. You can create hype and claims. A lot of it is being done, unfortunately. But it takes 10 years, 15 years, 5, 10, 15 years to produce original results. At IIT Madras Research Park, if you have not visited that sometime, all of you individually, I'll say, should come there. We are trying to take industry and academia to work together to produce commercially viable technologies in India. And we are doing it for last 10 years. And we have set up 300 companies, incubated 300 companies, starting from nothing. And do you believe that? We have hardly invested 2-3 crore rupees in these 300 companies. The value of these 300 companies today is 40,000 crore rupees. 40,000 crore rupees. I will say it was God's blessing. Otherwise, this couldn't have happened. But we worked hard for it. And we did not allow interference from either the central government or state government or even from IIT. Then only these things happen. We have youngsters, dedicated youngsters and scientists, some industry, and say we will make it happen for India and for the world. We are not exclusive for India, but for India. Let me get back to solar. Renewable energy and climate change. Our Prime Minister is committed to the world that we can get to net zero state. Net zero state means our emissions become zero by 2070. Which means mostly we'll use renewable energy and we will use very little of fossil fuels like coal, gas, petrol and diesel. We, the scientists and industrialists, have to not only help in getting there, but have to do it even faster. We therefore believe that we can do it by 2047. If we learn to do the right thing and dedicate ourselves to it. There is another area that we are weak. And I'm going to talk about strength and weakness so that we in India understand. This is internal. I hope there is no media person who will put all these things So let me elaborate. We have learned to set up large solar and wind plant. And we have today 85 gigawatt of capacity. We have a goal of reaching 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. And I think with some difficulty we'll get there. But this will also be a mere beginning. We'll have to actually install 6 times more to become net zero. And I think we can do it by 2047. But our success so far is only in large solar plant producing. So what happens, our large industries go, they bring technology from outside and they control everything and they actually do this. Those large plants gives you return on investment, so it's all right. Remember that no technology ever flourishes and is useful unless it gives you return on investment. Whatever you invest, it must give return. We need to take every technology to this stage. Till this happen, little bit of subsidies can be there, but that will never make anything flourish. Small here and there can be done. What we have not done is focus on decentralized solar, rooftop. In every village, can I put solar plants and pretty much get most of my electricity with storage there? We need something different there, which will not benefit the customer. As I told you, we'll have to make storage with generation. We'll have to make this cost effective. In India, everything has to be cost effective. And innovations are required to do so. But we are not willing to figure out this out ourselves. We mostly look for the West and outside India to bring the technology. And they don't need to make it as cost effective because they can afford higher cost. We refuse to accept our own innovation. I've seen this over the last 40 years I've been working at IIT Madras. When we started first wireless telephony, I'm the one who started and produced wireless in local loop here in Chennai. People said, how can wireless telephony be there? No, anybody else in the world has done it. This same question that is repeatedly asked. What happens that here also we've tried number of things. We started talking about solar DC. See, solar produces DC power, not AC power. Now, we also figured out that LED light only uses DC power. Then even fans can be made DC. Then it will actually be more efficient. Then all electronics uses DC power. So we came with a concept called solar DC here at IIT Madras. What we did, first thing that we did is that we actually installed it in our campus. In my own home, it was run by solar DC. And if those of you remember 2015, there was a big flood in Chennai, 3 days, the water was there, flooded 4 days, there was no electricity. My home always had electricity because there was a small solar panel, 125 watt, which was giving solar and wind. So giving electricity, and I was consuming only DC form because batteries also take only DC. So solar panel produces DC, usage is DC, battery is DC. Every time we convert DC to AC, AC to DC, we lose. But when we presented this and say we should do this, we should adopt this as a standard and use this all over India, everybody in Delhi says, what? Are we going back? This debate has been over 20 years back, 140 years back. We cannot use DC. Fortunately, again, it is Piyushi who sort of said this Ashok never gives up. So at least give him the most difficult area and let him deploy. So there was a part in Rajasthan which was bordering Pakistan, desert, complete. You can't even drive anything. No vehicle can go. You can only go on camel back. So he told me there is no electricity there. He told the department, do you have any plans to take electricity there? There are homes. They say, we don't know. So why don't you give this to them and let him do? So we are asked to do 4,000 plants. They paid for it. 4,000 homes. We actually went and installed that in 4,000 homes. I remember there was an old woman who sort of said, I've seen, she was 65 years old. This is the first time I've seen light in my home. So we did all this, but our bureaucrats in Delhi will still not accept it. Has anybody else in the world done it? Always the question, why can't we be first? We have lost that confidence that we can be the first. We kept persuading it. I had Padma Shri, I had a lot of reputation, a lot of people were backing me, but bureaucrats were stopping it by one way or the other. Then of course Prime Minister announced that we will put electricity everywhere, in every village, and lots of villages were not having electricity. So they were trying to do it using their own method, but the more difficult one, in Jammu and Kashmir, in hills, in Assam, in Manipur, even Meghalaya, they were not able to take because of very difficult mountainous area. So there they told us, go ahead and put it. So we actually got order for 60,000 homes, and we have actually installed this, and they are working quite well in solar DC. And yet DC will be not accepted. India could have become the leader. In fact, IEEE, the International Body for Electrical Electronics Engineers, is the international body, they awarded this as the best product of the year. Still, our Delhi bureaucrats were not accepted. Anyway, this is a story. I don't want to tell negative stories. This has been, I've seen it over the last 30, 40 years. We are the one who try to finish ourselves and not let us stand up. Well, this is past, so I don't want to complain. I am not come here to complain. And in fact, Prime Minister is not complaining. He is asking us to go forward. India needs to do much more. It has to continuously innovate to make use of renewable energy only. Our products have to not only shun fossil fuels, but these green products has to make sense to our people. They must be affordable to our people and need to be manufactured and deployed at scale in India. Otherwise, we can't generate employment. Note that use of fossil fuel for electricity, we do not use fossil fuel only for electricity, we use for heating and cooling. All our vehicles are running it. We actually use fossil fuel to make fertilizers. Nitrogen fertilizers, all fossil fuel. Aluminium, steel and cement. We need green alternatives for all of this. So there is a lot of R&D required. All that I can say, that there are enough scientists in India now. They are strong. They were not strong 40 years back. When I came here back from US, there was hardly that much. But today we have become strong. And our scientists can solve all these problems. You have to have a little bit of confidence. And in the best way is industry, and they work together. Industry also has to have that confidence. And leave bureaucrats out. And I think we can make it cost effective. And this is indeed doable. We need to develop technologies for all these alternatives such that every technology gives return on investment. Only if it gives return on investment, we'll switch over to green cement. Otherwise, we'll keep on using the dirty cement. This is indeed doable, and if we inspire our youngsters to develop, I believe our youngsters are very good. You know, Tamilnadu took the lead in setting up all these engineering colleges. Today, India produces 1 million engineering colleges. Now, many of these colleges, the teaching is not the best. But you know, these youngsters are good. At least half, or I will say even 70% of them, if we can motivate them, they can do wonders. And we have been doing this at IIT Madras Research Park. We have taken up also a goal that we will make India a leader in renewable energy technology by 2030 and help in stopping climate change. Whatever be the obstacles, we are ready, committed to do it. We know we will succeed. We will not fail. But before I end, I want to bring up another issue. This whole use of fossil fuel at large scale has been going on in last 150 years. The world has increased its energy usage by several hundred times, and it's going on increasing year after year. And remember, it is the West which is using the most. India, China are still using less. If our country's GDP grows, we will also start using. If everywhere we start putting air conditioning, we will also use. And as our GDP goes up, we will use more and more. As I said, today we are 103rd, but it won't be a matter of time before we will get to 50. This will mean the world will consume even more energy. And if we keep on increasing the uses of energy, no technology will help. We have become greedy, and our lifestyle has become we use more and more and more. This is the somehow everyone in the world today wants to consume more and more. It is not that higher consumption makes you happy. It does not. It is not that you are happier. But this is the way the world is. No technology can help in situation. India and several countries in the East has historically worshipped nature. We considered ourselves to be a part of nature, and we never thought of exploiting nature. Exploiting nature was not even in our vocabulary. We preferred to use a simpler life. Even our richest people used to live with simple. We knew that higher and higher consumption does not make one happy. Things have gone wrong somewhere. And today we run after accumulating wealth, power, and increased consumption. If that continues, pranay is sure to happen. And not in thousands of years. I'd say in about 100 years. There is no other option but we go back to our roots. There is no other option but we start living simple life, happy life, but simple life. That alone can save the world. I want to end by giving a quotation from Gandhiji almost 100 years back when this climate change was not even there. The world has enough for everyone's needs, but not for everyone's greed. India needs to lead the world with this thought. This is where we need to lead the world. This is our only way for the world to survive. We'll keep doing whatever for technology that is possible. That anyway we have to do. But also we have to live simply. And I hope the Mann Ki Baat talk of Prime Minister can inspire us to get there. Thank you.